Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Reasonably Effective Podcast. What episode number is it?
45.
I knew that. Yeah, I'm 10 Types with Uncommon Fossil. We're here recording next to each other again, so hopefully that sounds all good.
Yep.
And today we're going to be talking about battle styles as they are rotating
In a few
soon.
months.
Yeah, it's like,
I don't know. Was it February, March? I don't
yeah, it might be
know.
like 4 months. It's a little ways out, but
But we're coming to the end, but we can still play them for a bit. So, we know them. You can still enjoy them. I think it's a good time to talk about them.
yeah, and for those of you who don't know what the battle styles mechanic is, I imagine most of you do, but if you don't, it's I don't know exactly how to describe it, but it's a text on the card that kind of there's rapid strike, single strike, and fusion strike. They all have different ideas, I guess. Rapid and single strike are directly from the video game. They actually correspond to the Urshifus, which we will talk about. They each have
Yeah.
a number of cards, but they have like synergies together. And
hmm
Fusion Strike also does. Fusion Strike is essentially just the Mew VMAX deck. But we'll get to that. And there are a bunch. Fusion Strike came out like a number of months later, though, as well.
Right.
Same year, though.
Yeah, it was all within the one calendar year. The battle and the rapid and
Single.
single strike came out first, and the single strike was kind of designed towards big damage. The rapid strike towards spreading and switching was kind of the focus there, and it was a set kind of like the Paradox, where you have Pokemon, you have trainers, and you have energy.
Yeah, although Paradox Pokemon don't have. I mean, they have less stuff. They've only had one set.
Yeah.
They are kind of similar. Also, Ultra Beast is kind of similar, but we haven't seen any energy for Paradox Pokemon. Hopefully, we'll see that. I imagine we will.
I
Um,
hope so. I mean, they have the tool that's got energy in the name, right?
yeah,
So I was expecting energy, quite frankly, at some point.
yeah, it's kind of weird. I imagine we'll get it. Honestly, the Paradox mechanic came almost early. Generally, it's supposed to be at the beginning of every year. So when they introduced the mechanic, this time they introduced it at the end of like essentially the previous year, which is kind of interesting.
Right. And I was a little concerned that it wouldn't continue, but I believe we have confirmation that there are more Paradox Pokemon coming out in the future.
Yeah.
But
Although that being said, they are only confirmed, I believe, for the mini expansion. Battle Styles, I think, I don't know which was
hmm,
said, but we said it was only 1 year. That's technically not true in international release. I don't know if it's true for Japanese release, but it ran off a little bit into the
what, the following year?
yeah, I believe the mini set, or maybe it was the next set. We had a few extra Battle Styles cards, and then we had a few trickle down,
Right.
especially like alternate arts, but mainly it was just 1 year.
Yeah, that was a special release, right? The following year to kind of
Um,
clean things up,
no, I
or
think you're
no?
thinking. I was originally thinking of Crown Zenith, but that's
Okay,
not
it was
quite right.
not. Okay. But anyway, it was mostly a year, and they're all going to rotate. All the battle styles, they're all
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
E block, I believe. So we're going to just kind of talk through them. There's a lot of them. We're going to hit through them, a lot of them very fast because there's like 179 cards, I think.
Yeah. So anyway, the first card I guess we'll talk about is there's an Oricorio, a Fusion Strike Oricorio that is Psychic type. It's not good. I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world, but it's not good.
Right.
But I bet most of you know that exists. We will talk about the Fire type one, which actually sees a decent amount of play, but there are actually two Fusion Strike Oricorios. But then I guess we're looking through promos, and the one we have to talk about, which I think came out first as a promo, that was Hoopa V.
hmm
Hoopa V is a Pokemon with an ability that gives it. It's a Dark type Pokemon, but its ability says it's also a Psychic type. It's both.
Yep.
It's still only the original weakness. It does 170 for 3 and damages yourself a little. It's not that big of a deal, but um, what are your thoughts on this Pokemon?
Yeah, I mean, it was an interesting one. It's a fusion strike, by the way, for the which battle style it is. I mean, 170, and then you double it with the idea for hitting for things with weakness. So you're at what, 340. So you're one shotting, I think, everything that
Yeah,
if you're
within
hitting for
normal
weakness.
scenarios.
Yeah. So I kind of like it in that regard. Trying to deal with giving a little flexibility to the decks. Look, it wasn't a great card. It saw some play because of that ability, and it's a rule box, so Path of the Peak shuts that off.
Yeah, but I think it's a cool idea. We've seen this ability. Well, we originally, I think I liked their Pokemon that were actually multi-type, which I think was cooler.
Yeah.
We've seen obviously Terra Pokemon, which kind of mess around with type, but then we've also seen a few other Pokemon with abilities that make them double type, and I think it's a cool thing. Um,
Yeah, I mean, it's a way to play, have an energy with a dark energy deck, and be able to attack with something that's not just a dark Pokemon. You could attack with what is it?
Psychic.
A psychic, make it into a psychic Pokemon. I think the Terra mechanic is better at this than the Hoopa.
Yeah, I think the Terra. I actually recently made a video saying that it's been a little disappointing so far, but it's still potentially very interesting. I mean, Hooper's just one card as well.
Yeah.
Next up, let's see. There are obviously a lot of promos, a lot of pre-release promos that were battle styles, but
And a lot of them were released in the regular sets too.
yeah, I mean, yeah, there are a few like there's two Urshifu Vs
Right.
that actually were exclusives, but they're not that good.
Right, I think they were in a tin, but they were worse than the regular Urshifus.
Yeah. But let's talk about the trainers, and there are some. Which ones are the trainers in special energy? You want to talk about the special energy?
Sure. Hang on, I need to get to it though.
Yeah. I mean,
But so the special energy, you have the rapid strike energy, which provides 2 energy with a single attachment, and it's water and fighting, or any combination of the two. Could be 2 water, 2 fighting, one of each.
yeah. Although one of each doesn't, I don't think do anything.
I-
I can't remember, but I can't think of any Pokemon that.
that needed both, and they can only be attached to that battle style, to either a rapid or a single strike Pokemon. I believe they fall off if they're not.
Yeah. So the only way to get that they can't be regularly attached, and as you said, they fall off. You could.
If Temple of Sinnoh was in play, you could then attach it, because I think, although I'm not sure when Temple of Sinnoh doesn't, whether it's before it gets attached. I'm not.
Yeah,
positive.
I'm not sure.
If you could attach it and then remove Temple of Sinnoh, they'd fall off. But
The main thing is Archeops. So you can't because single strike Archeops or single strike like Lugia is a deck that we'll mention, and that can accelerate these special energies to Pokemon that aren't like single strike, and then it will fall off. I mean, but you can't like retreat. That's the one thing that I guess matters.
Right, but look, the important with the rapid strike, it provided 2 energies, a single attachment, which gives you options as we get into the Pokemon, right? So that was a big part of that. Again, the idea 2 energies gives you flexibility, which is the rapid strike thing, and then the single strike energy was just a single energy of fighting or dark type, which were good weaknesses to hit for, and then it had a Pokemon to accelerate that energy as well. We'll get to that, but it provided 20 more damage per single strike energy attached. So then they would stack. So you could get up to potentially 80 more damage if you had a full play set of single strike energy attached. Single strike energy also had a way to recover those energies, which is very good. So within the package there. So that's kind of what on those. But both obviously very important to the success of the rapid and single strike decks.
Yeah, and single strike energy, so obviously rapid strike providing multiple energies that provide multiple energies,
Yeah.
like energy cards that provide multiple like energy like cost or you think you know what I'm saying, but
one card that provides more than 1 energy at a time.
yeah. So those have been obviously double colorless has been like insane. Double turbo is quite good.
Yep.
And then you look at stuff like reversal, counter, triple acceleration.
Right. Yep.
And there've been others, but they're like good. They're more situational, but Rapid Strike isn't that situational. It's very good.
Right.
And Single Strike is like strong energy, and powerful colorless energy, and both of those were very good. I'd say powerful colorless was not as good, but it was still good.
Right. I mean, obviously, any Pokemon could take advantage of it.
Well, no.
Powerful
No,
colorless.
it's
It had to be a
colorless,
colorless Pokemon. I apologize.
colorless-
I forget about that.
Yeah,
You're
it's
right.
the colorless type, and it's kind of strange. But
The single strike being only a 1 energy, you needed the Pokemon that accelerated energy generally to make it viable, whereas the rapid strike energy you were just attaching by hand.
yeah. But then they also had a number of other trainers from the Battle Style set. We had scrolls. They weren't that impressive, but they existed. We saw 3 scrolls for each type. I don't think any were great.
No, we'll get into the one deck that kind of maybe used it some, but no, the scrolls weren't. The energy cost tended to be high in some cases, or if if it wasn't high with the attack was pretty mediocre. You had better options of just the Pokemon.
Yeah. But then we saw the mustards. And mustard, well, you want to talk about the mustards?
All right, I will. I mean, you were a big mustard fan
Yeah.
too. So.
Yeah, they're some of my most viewed videos, so yeah.
They were similar but different, right? So the single strike mustard was probably the better one. For both of them, you could only play the card when it was the last card in hand, so that's always a challenge. Before rotation, you had more discard options. It's now you have getting a few back lately, but you've got to get down to a 0-card hand, so that's not
outside of mustard.
Right, with just the mustard. And then you also need a bench space too, by the way, right? Or it doesn't work because you then single strike mustard. You search your deck for a single strike Pokemon. So you look in the deck, you put it onto your bench and draw 5 cards. So search your deck for any one Pokemon, and it can be an evolution Pokemon. It can be the VMAX or the stage 2. Terrific. That's directly on the bench that turn. And draw 5 cards. So very nice. The Rapid Strike was similar, except the Pokemon had to be in the discard pile, which would be better late game, but you often want to use these early game, so the Rapid Strike mustard was a little more challenging early game to pull it off.
Yeah, and also the single strike mustard saw play with the Pokemon we'll talk about later, but
Yes.
Yeah, the Rapid Strike one I don't believe saw really any serious play. I've played it, it's whatever.
Right, a fun thing to try out.
Yeah, Karina's Focus is a very mediocre supporter, but it is a draw supporter, which we'll get to later.
I mean, Karina's was important. It's a Rapid Strike card,
Yeah.
and we have a Pokemon that searches out any one Rapid Strike card. So Karina's you draw, you have 6 in hand, which is okay, but the fact that you had a way to access that card in your hand is important.
Yeah, and then Bruno Bruno's actually a very decent supporter.
Yeah.
It's almost directly worse than Cynthia's Ambition, which came out like a year later, but Bruno
Right, it was before that, so it was the best at the time.
Yeah, it's shuffle draw 4, but if one of your Pokemon was knocked out last turn, shuffle draw 7. This was before Cynthia's. This was before Raihan.
Yeah.
I think Rosa was in format at this time. I don't quite remember, but it was decent. We saw Urn of Vitality recovers single strike energy. That's really good. It's very straightforward, but it's an item that recovers single strike energy.
Into your deck, and you wanted it not into hand but into deck, up to 2 with 1 urn, so that's really good. And into deck, and you wanted them in the deck because you could accelerate from there.
Yeah, and you essentially needed it as well. The single strike Pokemon had big energy attack costs for the most part.
Right, and like the one attack would discard all the energies, right?
I think it was only 3.
Just only 3 energies.
Oh no, it is all the energies. It's a lot.
But it was an important attack in that deck, so you had to get a bunch of urns, otherwise you'd run out of energy before you took all your prizes.
Yeah, we see the 2 towers. Tower of Waters gives free retreat, not free retreat, but essentially free retreat, reduces by 2, and then Tower of Darkness is the single. Tower of Waters is rapids. Tower of Darkness is single strike, giving you a bit of extra draw, which is fine.
I mean, the Tower of Water synergized with the idea that your switching was part of the Rapid Strike style. So the Tower of Waters gave you that free retreat to get the switching you needed. And the Tower of Darkness it gave you a draw engine in a Rapid Strike deck because single strike deck.
Yeah, Tower of Darkness gave you a draw engine in single strike.
You drew 1, discard 1, draw 2. And single strike decks didn't often have any engine, which was a drawback.
Yeah. And then there was also Fan of Waves, which I think deserves some mention as it removes a special energy from your opponent's Pokemon back into deck.
Yeah.
Which is okay. It's
seen play at times.
Yeah, it's seen play. It's decent, I guess. It was good with the Italian engine, which we will talk about some, but yeah, Fan of Waves was pretty it's pretty okay.
And I'm not sure at the time. I don't think there was a supporter to get rid of special energies. Could be wrong. I know there's better ones.
I don't know. I mean, there's we'll get to one, but there's a supporter that removed energy like in general back to their hand, right, which is okay. But anyway, so then we see a few dark Pokemon from the set, and dark is one of the 2 types of single strike,
right?
And that's Houndoom. Houndoom, its ability single strike Roar. Once you turn your search deck for a single strike energy, attach it to one of your single strike Pokemon, and then you damage that Pokemon. Put 2 damage counters on it, which it's not that bad. It's not amazing, but it's fine.
Right.
For the damage counters, but accelerating the energy is nice.
Yeah.
That being said, you need probably multiple Houndooms in play.
Right, you need at least 2, maybe 3, which is why you couldn't have an engine, because you had to fill up half your bench with Houndooms.
Yeah.
And you needed to evolve these stage ones without having an engine. So a single strike always seemed a bit dicey. You really needed to get kind of a bit lucky to get set up.
Yeah, and single strike's always been kind of high rolly.
Yeah.
I mean, Rapid Strike has had some high roll stuff as well.
hmm
I'd say Single Strike's the worst of the three. That might not be right, but
I mean, it had its day when it was the best. Rapid Strike has been more consistent on its own, and obviously Single Strike it works with Lugia,
yeah,
which obviously Rapid Strike would too, but that's not seen as the better play.
yeah. But then Tyranitar V is another Single Strike Pokemon. It is one of the Lugia partners for Single Strike Lugia. For those of you familiar with that, it's Lugia V Star with Archeops, which is kind of like Houndoom, but it's better.
Because you're not damaging.
You're not damaging. You get two.
Yeah.
And it can be non-single strike as well, so it's very versatile.
Yep.
It is a stage 2 fossil, but you can play with Lugia. I'm sure most of you know that, and if you don't, don't worry about it. So yeah, Tyranitar is pretty good. I mean, it's 240 for 4.
Right. So it's there for to one-shot things with weakness generally. It obviously can one-shot basic Vs or EXs.
Yeah, I mean, you can honestly one-shot pretty much anything if you have.
Oh, right. Then you stack the
single
energy. That's true. You get 20 per single strike energy, and again, you can recover those as the game goes on. You do mill 4 from your own deck with that 240 attack, which there's times if you're doing it early and you still don't have your board set up, it's a bit scary.
Yeah.
Hopefully your board's set up. So
you're probably
survive.
not doing it without your board set up anyway. It is 4.
That's true.
But then we get to the Urshifus. Which one do you want to talk about first?
Why don't we do the single strike since we were talking about the Tyranitar?
Okay. So you want to introduce that one?
Sure. So single strike, each of these are evolutions. So the single strike Urshifu.
VMAX.
VMAX, yeah. So the big attack here is it did 100 for 3. And again, you had the single strike energies to boost that up. But generally, you weren't using that attack, I don't think. It depended on the matchup.
Oh, which the first?
Yeah, the first attack.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay. It doesn't. The second attack discards all the energies. Like, you can get it up to 180 for
if you have all the energies.
If you have all the energies. But reasonably, you can get 160. That's not crazy. And that's pretty decent. I mean, it one-shots with weakness, right?
Right. And fighting weakness was and still is a nice, especially back in the day, it was a very nice type to hit for. But then the big attack, G-Max, 1 blow, and 1 blow is what it does. 4 energies, 3 being fighting. Obviously, the single strike energy provides the fighting. 270 damage plus whatever boost you get from your attachments of single strike, which you have a bunch of most likely. Then you discard all energy attached to this Pokemon, and it's not affected by effects on the opponent's active Pokemon, which at times that was important too.
It is important. Realistically, you're looking at something like Decidueye, and so you're doing like 4. You're doing like 300 damage to this Decidueye,
Yes.
and you're like discarding all your energy, and so I guess it gets the job done, but
Right. Or
not very
the
efficient.
colorless Pokemon, right?
Yeah, there's Altaria.
Well, I was thinking the one with the V, right? Blissey. Miltank, like Miltank, right? You needed that
Yeah.
for Miltank too. I mean,
there are lots of
look, it's nice to have an option to hit through effects. That's always a plus.
Yeah. So that could be useful, but
mostly it's a big attacker and it blows up. Does it blow up does it one shot? I guess
I mean,
you need
you
all
can.
one shot the Charizard
yes.
EX. You need all 4 rapid strike in it, all 4 single strike. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I know you just need 3.
Just
So and like you will honestly probably have 3 on because it's hard to power up without 3,
right.
like without triple Houndoom. So
Yeah, so you can do it, but you're damaging yourself in the process. At 330 HP, which is good, but you're going to be below 300 once you've accelerated your energies, probably.
yeah. And Single Strike Urshifu VMAX has seen some playing Lugia, but not that much.
Yeah.
The V also has its 180 for 3. It's decent, I guess.
Yeah, there were decks that just played the V, the V, and not the VMAX.
Yeah, but now I think I want to talk about Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX, which is probably better. In its first act, Gale Thrust for 1 fighting. Assuming you move from the bench to the active, you hit 150, which is very decent. I mean, that's good. That's very efficient.
Right, 150
damage.
for 1, and it's an evolution. You could Cheryl, heal it off, because you probably weren't getting one shot. That was one way to play the deck.
Yeah. And then G-Max Rapid Flow, the second attack, you do have to discard all the energy again, but it's fighting colorless. And you do 120 to your opponent's Pokemon. Keep in mind, there was like bench barrier for pretty much the whole time this card was in
Right.
format.
You had the Mew first when it came out, and now
Man,
Manaphy. There was one or two expansions without anything.
yeah, it might have been a little, and that sounds about right.
But honestly, it didn't like dominate the world without bench barrier either. There was this thought that Urshifu was going to just roll everything, and it still didn't. It was still it was good and it improved it, but
Yeah.
it didn't make it everything.
Yeah, and the big issue is it can't really KO these big Pokemon because the max it can do to one target is 150, which is not very impressive. Your second attack does do 240, but not to one.
Right.
There were some ways of buffing up the second attack, increasing bench damage. There was Telescopic Sight, and I guess we'll just mention Passimian here as
Right.
well, which was nice. So you could hit 180.
Yeah, it was
per target,
important.
which could be insane. You could just take 4 prizes in one turn, but against a single target, you're still struggling.
Right. I mean, back when Crobat V was played in a lot of decks, you could one-shot a Crobat
Yeah.
potentially. Look, I think this is probably the biggest, most impactful of the Battle Styles card. Well, outside of Mew.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I think we'll talk about
of the Rapid and Single Strike. I think this is the big one. The downside is it's 3 energy. It's you attach your Rapid Strike energy almost always. That gets you 2 energy, pays for the 2 fighting, but you needed to accelerate 1, which a couple of ways. One, there was with Dark Energy.
You do Glam Moltres Energy Switch.
Right, Glam Moltres Energy Switch, which you gotta get Switch in a hand, or Melanie was another way because the V to accelerate water. You need some way to get an extra energy on if you're going to stream those attacks, which you wanted that option.
Yeah, there are honestly like a ton of ways. There were like so many, and they were all super sketchy. Like not super sketchy, but not super consistent either.
Right.
We'll move on. We're definitely going to touch on it again later. Though.
Yeah.
Stonejourner, though, is a card that sees play in singles like Lugia. Nothing crazy, but it sees play there.
And there you could build, and I did, a single prize, single strike deck. And this would be one of the cards in it.
Yeah.
Because you hit for weakness, it does 120. And you're buffing the damage with the energies.
Yeah,
So-
I will say that deck was bad.
It wasn't the best thing. I'll grant you that. There's worse things, but we probably won't talk much about
Yeah.
those.
So there's Octillery. We talked about that earlier. You said.
Yeah, there's that Mind Shao. You're skipping that, which
Yeah.
I just always wanted that as a hit and run, but it just wasn't good.
Yeah.
You did skip over on Impulling.
I'll get it.
Okay, all right. So Octillery, which is you had Octillery for Rapid Strike. We have the Houndoom. We'll get to for.
No, we talked.
We talked about Houndoom. Sorry. For Single Strike. So Octillery, I think it's better. It's a really good card. It Rapid Strike Search is the ability. You can only use this once per turn, and that's even if you have multiple Octilleries in play. So it's not.
Which I think wasn't necessary. I think.
It wouldn't have overpowered things. And obviously you're taking up another bench slot to do it, but it was just something you have to keep in mind. And obviously this is still in standard, so and they're still decent decks. The Urshifu deck still gets seeing some success, but Rapid Strike Search, you search your deck for any one Rapid Strike card, which means it can be the Pokemon, can be the trainer, can be the energy. So really nice versatility. There's not really other cards. It's one of the best search cards in the game right now.
Yeah, it's kind of like Force Seal Stone, I guess. I mean, it's kind of different, but
right. I mean, it's obviously limited
to. That's more similar.
Okay.
But yeah, it's limited. We talked about Krina's Focus, and that was a target. You'd play Krina's Focus because you play Octillery.
Right.
Although it's an incredibly mediocre supporter, it is searchable.
Right.
This is the main way to search Rapid Strike Energy.
Yeah, Rapid Strike Energy or Rapid Strike Pokemon. So
I mean, you can search Rapid Strike Pokemon with regular Pokemon search too.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't search Rapid Strike Energy with like anything.
Right. Yeah. There's. So it was a really good card, very important card. The deck obviously Rapid Strike decks fall apart without it.
Yeah, they sometimes fall apart with it too.
That is true. I mean, fair enough.
But then Empoleon V is an interesting card. It has an attack, which is usable, certainly, but then we see it has an ability, Emperor's Eyes, as long as this Pokemon is the active. Oh, okay, this card was... is this card the most impactful battle style? It might be. It introduced the term Rule Box, actually, which is really interesting.
Oh, is this the first card
yeah,
of the Rule
Box?
Box?
The first card that introduced Rule Box.
Okay.
So it said it actually made it worse, like less interesting and worse. But anyway, as long as this Pokemon is in your active spot, your opponent's basic Pokemon in play have no abilities except for Pokemon with the Rule Box.
Right.
So Rule Box Pokemon are like multi-prizes, VHGXs, EXs, and then they also include
Radiant Pokemon.
yeah, Radiance, Prism Stars. I guess they include Terra Pokemon as well, but those are
They're all multi-prizers.
yeah, they're all EXs.
yeah.
So I think they do. I don't know the exact ruling of Terras. But yeah, so this turns off. It turned off Jirachi, and then it turns off Comfy.
Comfy, yeah.
So this is one of the better counters to Lost Zone, I guess. It doesn't see that much play, but it has seen
No.
some. I've messed around with it. It's pretty decent, I guess.
It got more hype probably than it actually delivered on, I think. But
Well, I mean, I think the hype was the ruling.
I guess. Well, there were decks that were playing. Like there was a period when everybody was playing it. Well, like against Lost Zone, right? And they were putting one Empoleon.
Oh,
then
yeah.
they're like, oh, you got to put 2 in your deck
Yeah, there
because
was
in
that
case they
thing.
rope. And then like with a couple within a month, it was like, forget the Empoleons. It doesn't help.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't like. I mean, well, people would put it in and they couldn't attack with it, which was not good.
Right. Yeah. Yes.
If you can attack with it, I think it's a decent inclusion,
Right.
especially if you are very concerned about Lost Zone.
You could still do it now, and you can
yeah.
hit through the walling Pokemon, the basic that walls off Rulebox Pokemon, right? It would hit through that
yeah,
too.
yeah. I mean, it turns it off.
It turns it off, so you know.
Let's see the rest. Nothing else from that set. I mean, we talked
No.
a bunch about that set though, because it is
Yes.
the defining set.
It was the first set, and it had the big Pokemon and the energies.
Yeah, I don't know if it had the best Pokemon, but it certainly had it defined the.
Had the Urshifus, right?
Yeah. Next up though, we got Chilling Rain. We have Impact Energy and Spiral Energy. Pretty much. I don't know. They are rapid and single strike.
Yeah.
They turn off certain special conditions that didn't matter much at all, and then they provided every type.
Which was important for some decks, right? It were some other Pokemon that didn't have the types that matched the rapid and single strike energies. It had value.
It was okay. Yeah, I don't think either are that good.
There were rapid strike decks that could use the spiral because of Octillery. You could search the spiral. You could do open up some options, not to the best decks.
Yeah,
but
to Malamar, which we'll talk about. So that's the main one, though. It probably is.
yeah, the Impact I don't think was played as much. I guess it would be in single strike in Lugia though.
You
probably.
could, but you don't. I think a lot of us don't.
Okay.
But so Flannery just crit a Steam, especially into
Mm-hmm.
his fun control card. Then we have Karen's Conviction. This buffs damage. We had Echoing
Right.
Horn, another good control card. And then you want to talk about a certain trainer from the set.
Yeah. Well, look, Echoing Horn's still important though.
Oh, yeah,
right?
it's still
so.
very
So
good.
as you Barizo, right? You put a basic Pokemon for your opponent's discard pile onto their bench. So this is one that's used. A few of them, not in necessarily rapid strike decks. It's a rapid strike
Yeah,
card.
it was in Snorlax.
In Snorlax, yes.
That's
It's used in a deck like
It's played from Austin.
Suicune or Entei, or one that's based on damage number of Pokemon. Sometimes,
Yeah, like Palkia. But I think it's and also Lost Zone sometimes. Like you can throw this in any deck.
control decks like you said,
Yeah, pretty much any deck can play it. It's one of the few cards that is a consideration in like essentially every deck, but isn't that good in every deck, which is
No,
really
I mean that's true, right? Outside of a rapid strike deck with artillery, you're since Drizzle's rotated, you're kind of hoping to get it if you have it. But it's one of the few Battle Class cards that's pretty potentially universal. But yeah, so Welcoming Lantern, single strike card. This is the one item that puts a single strike supporter from the discard pile into your deck,
hand.
into your hand, which is even better, right? You did mention Flannery and Karen's Conviction, which weren't great. It was way to get Bruno in for single prize decks. And if you wanted to play it with Pokestop, then Pokestop discards your supporter, but Welcoming Lantern goes in your hand, which was viable. It was a way particularly before rotation, to play Lunatone Soul Rock, because you're digging through the deck and you need that supporter. You're getting knocked out every turn, so it could work.
Yeah, I will say that the trainers for both were pretty underwhelming. Well, they each only had one draw supporter. Both of the draw supporters were pretty mediocre. And the rest of the supporters were kind of whatever. Like I skipped over Seawold and Brawly. Brawly is bad. I was gonna say it's like okay, it is usable. It saw a little bit of play.
A little usable. I mean, Flannery for some
Flannery's
control decks,
decent,
that
but
was
not,
probably
like-
the most played of like this set of Brawly, Cybold, and Karen's Conviction.
Yeah, Karen's Conviction was actually played with single strike.
Yes.
Flannery doesn't really interact with single strike at all. We got a few more scrolls as well. Grab Drop was okay. Skull Piercing was bad. Like, I don't think this one ever saw play. But yeah, the Grav Drop was okay. So Skull of the
Yeah.
Skies, I should say.
Well, yeah, and the Rapid Strike, because the one Pokemon had a little more viability.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it was okay. So
The problem is the Grab Drop, the energy is lightning colorless. The Rapid Strike energy does not provide lightning.
yeah, well, there were a few Lightning Pokemon, or Lightning Energy attackers from Rapid Strike. We'll still talk
Yes,
about it.
I get it.
Um,
But it wasn't like a universal scroll you could drop in any
yeah,
Rapid Strike deck.
yeah, and same thing with the other one. The Skull Piercing is Fire, which isn't the right type.
Correct.
Yeah. Anyway, so we got some colorless Pokemon. We got Kecleon, which is Rapid Strike, which changes types.
Yeah, which is fun, but it's something to try, but not but don't think it'll be very successful is
Yeah.
my experience.
Tornadus VMAX was a single strike VMAX that saw some play incredibly mediocre.
Yeah,
I think that's
that's probably enough of those, right?
yeah. And then let's see, a Viper. That one's one worth mentioning. It's
Yeah, I mean that was in my single strike box. The Viper was
yeah,
one
that
of
was
them.
like the defining Pokemon of that deck. Again, not very
And
good.
it was like a what borderline top 20, low end top 20 deck maybe.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's
You
not
could
that
play
good.
No, but you could play it. And certainly you could play it on ladder. It did 90 for 3. If you played single strike supporter,
Which was Bruno. Like that was pretty much
yeah,
had
then it did
Bruno.
90 more, so 180 plus the buff of your energies.
Yeah, so you are probably one-shotting basic Vs, but you're also never like dusting.
Right, and you have to get those Houndoom set up and such, or else you were doing nothing. So.
Yeah. This set also introduced one of my favorite Pokemon, Metagross VMAX. It's a card. Yeah.
Oh, so you liked it?
I really liked it, yeah, but I think we don't need to spend too much time on it. Passimian mentioned that earlier. Buffing bench damage to Vs and GXs does not bench to all rule box.
Right, which obviously would make it potentially as a play today. I don't know if it would
Yeah.
be, but it doesn't hit EXs. But it was an important card in decks, in the Urshifu decks early on.
Yeah, I'd
particularly.
say it defined the high roll like era of Urshifu because it meant like, oh, you can pull up these crazy combos to like take like 4 prizes, or you like
Right.
miss a piece and then you don't do anything.
Right, or you don't knock anything out, yes.
But then you got your favorite.
Oh, we're going on to Malamar, huh? Yeah, you're skipping over those others that probably aren't
Yeah,
that
I've
good.
played Glare and Surfetched, I'll say that.
Yeah, I mean, look, we've tried out some of these, right? I mean,
I mean, you've tried.
I've tried, I'm sure.
Have you tried Lycanroc?
I think I did. But anyway, yeah. But Malamar, Rapid Strike Malamar, one that I enjoyed a lot. Still have played it not that long ago. So Rapid Strike Tentacles, it's a stage 1. So stage 1s I always are pretty easy, right, to get set up. The basics are
They're
better.
easy. They're not.
That's a lot easier than stage 2s, I think.
A
lot easier,
I'd say
I
the
think.
difference between basic and stage 1 is bigger than stage 1 and stage 2.
I would disagree, but
I mean, in practicality, you can theoretically do all the same things of a stage 2 as a stage 1, which you can't. But basics, like you can't
well,
just have a stage 1 and play. I mean, you can.
Well, part of it is obviously for setting up one, maybe, but in a deck like this, it's a single
Yeah, it is
prize,
your
1
main
HP.
attacker.
You're getting knocked out every turn. You've got to get it set up. So if you had to stream stage 2s that are getting knocked out every turn, you're probably gonna fail along the way.
That's true.
But this, all you need is one basic Inkay on the bench, and then you're good to attack the next turn.
Unless Dragonfall comes along. And then you're not. Or Shifu. Or like
Exactly,
Jolteon. Or
yes.
Jolteon, you're okay. Maybe.
Right. No,
but-
yes, I get it. There were concerns, but look, it single prize. It did 40 per Rapid Strike card you had in hand, and you put it back in your deck so
And you
that
can choose as well. You don't need to do all of them.
right, and because you're kind of building up. You generally couldn't play boss in the deck because you're playing Bruno or the one that drew to 7. I mean to 8. Cynthia's Ambition when that came out, or something like that. So you're building a big hand. You're not gusting. You have things like your stadium that you might play, your Rapid Strike, your Tower Waters, but you want to keep it to put back in the deck. And the deck gets better as the game goes on because you're concentrating the Rapid Strike cards. But it was dicey. I would fair to say, but it was a decent single prize Rapid Strike deck, right? Was there a better single prize Rapid Strike deck?
I can't think of any off the top of my head, and it probably is the best. I mean, it's not.
Is
a
it the
high
best
bar.
battle style single prize deck?
I can't think of the other ones. But
Right.
I don't-
It was the V's really were the defining decks from
yeah.
this. So
So then we had Bayonet, fun card.
What's that one do again?
It damaged itself. It didn't
Oh yeah, put
like
damage counters onto your like one away from being knocked out, and then damage based on that.
yeah, it's okay. I mean, it's not really okay. It's pretty bad,
Right.
but
It's an
it's
evolution.
funny. It's one I played that I can do some stuff.
Mhm.
Zero Aura V, it does 100. But
Rapid strike.
yeah, Rapid Strike, Cross Fist. For Lightning colorless, a bit awkward attack cost.
Right.
If one of your other Rapid Strike Pokemon use an attack during your last turn, this does 160 to when your opponent's benched, in
Mhm.
addition to the 100. So that's very good damage output. That's 260.
Right. It's more than the Urshifu did. That was 240 with its spread attack.
Yeah.
This is 260
Um,
on a basic V2 prizer.
Yeah, so there were some things. There was some like weird Sobble deck. I mean,
Oh,
it's a Zero Aura deck.
Thobble with Keep Calling.
Yeah.
I mean, Call for Family, right?
No, it was Keep Calling,
Okay.
which is like Call for Family, but only for Rapid Strike, which we'll get to, which was actually very important.
Yeah.
But then you could like do some funny combo with Zero Aura, which was super sketchy.
But you had to get the energies on.
Yeah, you'd like Raihan, but if your opponent like didn't KO you, you'd like lose the game. It was kind of weird.
Right.
But then this was also potentially part of another deck, which we'll get to.
The one I played or no? Or do I need to
No,
mention the
we'll
player?
we'll get to that.
Okay.
But first, actually, no, yeah, you can talk about Blaziken here.
Is that in the set?
Yeah, Blaziken VMAX is in the set.
Okay, so which I enjoyed. I liked it more than it was good, I will say. It's a VMAX, a rapid strike. The main attack for 2 energy, max blaze. On 3 prize it does 130, so I don't know what more you could be hoping for in attack. But all right, that's not good. But then you chose 2 of your rapid strike Pokemon and bench Pokemon. It couldn't accelerate to itself, but you wouldn't want to, and you attach an energy card to each of them, and I think it's any energy card from the discard pile.
Yeah.
So with decks like Urshifu, right, where you're discarding your energies when you attack, you could switch between that and Blaziken. Certainly tried that. Certainly Sylveon box deck, which we'll get there.
Yeah.
Could toss us in, or Zero Aura, right? The
Yeah.
Zero Aura, the Blaziken powers it up. Then you do the Zero Aura the following turn. You can alternate attacks in that.
Yeah, I'd say it's it's about as good as it looks. If it looks okay, it's decent.
It's okay. You know, it was
it-
as good as Malamar.
Yeah. Oh, one thing about no, it was probably worse than Malamar.
Yeah.
The one thing about Malamar, I want to say, I forgot to say
Okay.
this. It is like essentially the only Rapid Strike Pokemon that has a retreat cost of more than 2, so it doesn't get free
So it
retreat.
didn't get free.
Which
Yeah.
was a bit of a problem. It wasn't that.
But you always wanted to attack with it, unless you had another one on the bench without energy.
Or with it.
When you played a Malamar deck, you had one attack Pokemon to attack with Malamar, and it had one attack, which is partly why you hated the deck.
Yeah, I found the deck was really boring. I found the deck was very linear, and not fun. A lot of people are like, this deck's so hard to play, and I'm like, you just do the same thing over and over. And then, yeah. Anyway, so we did have Cinderace, kind of fun card. We had Urshifus, but single prize Urshifus. They were both mediocre.
Yeah.
Rapid Strike Urshifu was notoriously good in single prize format. Got banned
Okay.
with Zebstrika, I think. I don't remember. I didn't play that, but that was a thing that was kind of funny.
Right.
But then we have a really good Pokemon in Beedrill. So Beedrill has it has Jet Spear, which is an okay attack, but nothing crazy. But then Persisting.
Well, no, but when you played a Beedrill deck, it did 110 for 1 energy, which you do that at times too.
You would. It depends on
wasn't
the
terrible.
deck. The worse the deck, the more.
Well, if your opponent didn't play special energy.
Well, yeah, but you'd probably not want to be attacking
Yeah. All
Beedrill.
right. So that's a go ahead.
Anyway, so it's Persisting. If your opponent's active has any special energy attached to it, it's instantly knocked out.
Yeah.
Which is obviously very good if they have it, and completely useless if they don't.
Right.
So the idea was that you play this with Mustard. This was the Mustard target.
Yeah.
This saw play at its peak in Arceus.
When Lugia came out, right?
No,
or when
before.
with
Like,
Mew too.
No, I mean it was always. I mean Mew was
Well, what
out
were the
before
special?
Arceus.
Yeah.
But it was just good in general. Like a lot of decks played
When
like,
there was a lot of
Capture,
special energy. That's true.
Energy,
Capture was a big thing. Yeah.
Speed energy. There were speed lightning.
Yeah.
There were like a number of special energies. It was good. Just like and double turbo as well. This Beedrill was very decent. Seeing just so like some weird stuff like I think like Flygon V and like Sandaconda VMAX was a deck. That wasn't like that bad. It was actually pretty good.
And this was the type of card that would pop off randomly and like do really well in some event.
Yeah.
Because people aren't expecting it, and you gotta get a little lucky because you have to the Mustard has to be the last card on hand.
Yeah, with Arceus, with the V-Star power of Arceus, and
Right.
with another card that we'll talk about, or a few cards. It wasn't that hard though.
Although you usually beat Star Fire only once in the game.
Yeah, well, but
so
there's
hopefully
something else
Okay.
though.
All right. Well,
Bring us to arguably the best cards from the battle styles, Sobble and Inteleon, which were the worst parts of their evolution line. But they were there's a Drizzile and an Inteleon that had the ability Shady Dealings, which when you evolved into them, let you search for 1 or 2 trainers respectively.
from the Sword and Shield base set.
Yes, and so those were good cards,
Yes.
incredibly good cards, and they each were very good with Scoop of Net. With they were searchable pretty easily, and pretty much let you do whatever you wanted. Kind of let you do mustard stuff, let you do like all sorts of crazy things.
Right.
You could you could even attack with the one. You can attack with this new Inteleon as well.
Right, but not for much.
But yeah, you
damage.
want us to talk about the Salvo Inteleon?
Right, so the Sobble, this was definitely the better Sobble. It had less HP, it's 60 HP, but it had the Keep Calling attack. Search your deck for up to 3 basic Rapid Strike Pokemon. So if you went second, even in a non-Rapid Strike deck, and most of the time the Inteleon line was not in a Rapid Strike deck. It could be, not that it wouldn't be, but it was in,
And it was better
in a lot of decks.
in Rapid Strike decks.
Yeah, like Rapid Strike Urshifu with this was quite good. You search for 3 Rapid Strike Pokemon, so 3 is a lot. So you would obviously, if it's non-Rapid Strike deck, you
And
get your
basics.
others down and
don't
right,
use
just
that.
basics. Sorry, correct. But then you'd fill your bench up, the rest of it with the Sobbles, which you need to toss the Drizziles, which you didn't use. There was a Drizzile here, but I don't know that I ever played the Rapid Strike Drizzile.
Yeah, that'd be bad, really bad.
And you kind of have some mix of the two Inteleon. This Inteleon was mainly here for the quick shooting ability. You put 2 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon, which was very important for a number of situations. Just getting knockouts or getting damage on Pokemon to kind of help things out.
Yeah, it was anywhere from a nice addition to completely creating whole decks. Like Jolteon VMAX needed this Inteleon to do its damage.
Right. You could only hit the bench if it was damaged.
Yeah, so that like this card was insane. I mean, they're good. They were part of an insane evolution line.
Right. Without the other Drizzile, though, because these cards are in format now, and
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know the last time I've seen it. Even if, and obviously Rapid Strike gets played, and do people even use the Inteleon now in that
No,
deck?
I haven't. I've seen it pop up in weird things from time to time, but it's not particularly good.
I guess you could do it in like some Snorlax stall deck or something.
Yeah,
if
and
you
I've seen
thought,
people
but-
mustard it out. I've seen some weird stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, anyway, we're moving on from that to one of the most interesting sets, Evolving Skies, which had scrolls. It had the single strike scroll, the Fang Dragon, which
It's a good
is-
name too.
Yeah, which is 5 energy, but you could it's just fighting metal colors, so multiple of the energy you couldn't pay with a single strike. But you
Right.
could use this with the Sunflora, which said that the next turn your grass and fire Pokemon attack for free, so you could attack with
Okay.
Weedle for 300 damage, and then come up short on your opponent's Pokemon VMAX.
Because 300 wasn't quite enough, and it was 2 turns to make it off. But yeah, it is fun to try.
Yeah, there's some like weird things with it. They were all kind of bad. Oh, you discard all the energy attached to, like, you know.
Yeah, and the other one too, the Rapid Strike also discarded. So I'm trying to think. I don't think I used that Rapid Strike scroll.
Yeah, this was probably the worst of the Rapid Strike scrolls. But then we had Zygarde. Zygarde was okay, I guess. We had looking at the single prizes, Milotic stops effects of supporters done to your hand. And done to you or your hand. Yeah, so that will stop Avery as well, I believe. Or maybe not. I don't know. It stops
to
something
your hand.
to you or your hand.
Oh,
I don't know.
okay.
Or maybe it's I don't know. It stops something else.
Was it Marnie was the big thing at the time? when-
Marnie,
came
Iono, Judge. So it's played in like Tinkaton. There's a Wishy Washy, which is kind of fun. We got Jump Bluff. Attached twice. It's a stage 2, but essentially
Right.
like a stage 1.
Because of the skip loom, which when
Yeah.
you attach an energy from it, in the attack on the stage 1 and stage 2 is 1 grass, then you can evolve from it that turn. So,
This was you played with like the scrolls, or you do some silly stuff. But
Right,
it
but-
wasn't that good.
well, yeah, I mean, it's fun because you could evolve to a stage 2, didn't need rare candy, and then it had the Fluffy Barrage ability. This Pokemon may attack twice.
Yeah,
And even
which
if the
is
opponent's active Pokemon's knocked out, they send up another Pokemon. So you could attack twice. It did 60 on its
yeah.
own, so up to 120, but that's not good enough. So you could kind of do a jump up with the Scrolls deck that was kind of sketchy, and you'd have some fun, but that was about it.
Yeah. But then we have to talk about the VMAXs from the set. And this had
Yes.
there's Medicham V. I forgot that card too. That card's very good. We can't really skip over it. It's
No,
good in Iron Valiant.
It's right. It's come back, and obviously the Urshifu Inteleon deck
Yeah.
uses it too, and Iron Valiant. So
It's just a big deal.
Yeah.
It's just a big deal. But then we had a bunch of VMAXs. I guess is there anything else to say about Medicham? I mean, it's very
right.
good.
Well, Yoga Loop lets you attack.
Oh, you place
have
2
turn
damage counters, and then if you KO, you take an extra turn.
Right, it's even better than Dialga V-Star, which lets you. No, that's
Well,
the
it's
same thing.
different.
It's better. I was going to say it's better. You get a full turn. It's not just attack twice like with Jump Fluff,
Yeah.
but you get you get to play your supporters and everything. And if you were knocked out your opponent's last turn, you still could play Raihan back-to-back turns and stuff.
Yeah.
Or like Bruno for extra cards.
Mhm.
Okay.
But then, so we got some insane VMAXs.
Yes.
Flareon and Vaporeon were not the insane VMAXs. But we had Sylveon VMAX, does 70, 50, or no, 30 more for each different type of Pokemon on your bench.
Right.
Maxing out at 270 under normal scenario.
3 energy.
Yeah, 3 colorless.
Yeah.
So you can power this up. This is essentially the same attack cost as Urshifu. We could use double turbo, which eventually solved with Arceus, but before then,
Right.
you do all those weird tricks you do to get up Urshifu. You
Right.
play Urshifu in the same deck. You could have grass energy, you could have dark energy,
Right, and have an energy
have water
switch
energy.
card, or again, you could, because the Sylveon wants a range of Pokemon. So, like Blaziken's an option. It gives you fire, and you get you 30 more. The problem is it still doesn't hit quite the numbers you want on it.
Yeah, it's
But because it's
That's
a
not
box
bad.
deck, you get a lot of different types, so you're trying to hit for different weaknesses. And this was a deck that, depending, like if you wanted the Zero or the Lightning, which is Rapid Strike 2, then you'd play like Spiral Energy 2 or something, probably.
yeah. But then you'd also have
And there's the Tool. I don't know. We'll get to that later.
um
Or that.
no, that's not for. Well, that was for which.
Well, there's this tool for the Sylveon.
Oh
right?
yeah, that wasn't.
That's not a Rapid
Rapid
Strike
Strike.
tool, right?
Yeah, so you give 1 less prize if your Sylveon's KO'd.
Which is quite nice.
It's quite nice. It actually didn't see that much play, but it's good.
No, right. But 310 HP, 2 prizes, that's.
It's really good.
Yeah.
Then we had Umbreon. Umbreon VMAX. Its attack is incredibly mediocre, again, like many of the single strike VMAXs.
Yeah.
But its ability Dark Signal is so good when you evolve it. It can be turned off by Path, which is a big downside. But when you evolve into it, you Gust, which is so good.
Right. So it's a boss on play.
Yeah, and this was one of the 3 single strike VMAXs that were kind of like the single strike deck. Although those might not even be any of the best single strike VMAXs, but it was one of the 3 really good ones. You pair with Houndoom, its damage output was okay.
Right.
The V's output was actually the same as well, assuming you're using Houndoom. And then it was nice. It gave you a bit more versatility within the deck.
Right. It got hit for a different weakness with Dark, which obviously is useful.
Well, I guess it.
Well, then you're one-shotting most
Yeah.
things.
Well, there are a number of other dark single
It
strike
is.
Pokemon as well.
It also saw play in Arceus decks,
Yeah, it's seen play in Arceus decks, which is very good.
and even Eternus, which was around with it when it came out.
A little. I don't think it's not too much.
I mean, but it gave you, obviously you filled the bench with Dark Pokemon. You didn't want to attack with it, but it gave you the Gust, which,
Yeah,
has value.
And then this one, I'm going to talk about
Okay, the good one here.
the big boy.
Okay,
Second
because
best.
we got the other. So this is one of the 2 Dragon VMAX. that came
this
out
set,
with
I guess
that.
we should say a big thing about this set.
yeah.
It reintroduced dragon types, I guess. They're still
After.
in the format at the time.
They never rotated.
They didn't. They almost did, but they didn't.
Okay.
So people
Because ADP was still around.
ADP was still
That was
around.
still what?
There was another Pokemon which we'll talk about.
Okay.
Another tag team dragon.
All right. So Duraludon VMAX, which is one I love to play. I'm always afraid of things. So it's got an attack Gmax pulverization. Of course, 2 energy types as a dragon type. 220, which is a solid number to hit. Fighting metal. It would have been nice if one of those was colorless, but you had to. It was what it was, and it hit through effects, which obviously,
That was nice. That was pretty
and
nice.
it was meaningful at the time, right? At the time, hitting through effects was important.
Yeah.
Wall decks were more common than some other times, and then it had the skyscraper ability, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks if your your opponent's Pokemon has a special energy attached. So
Yeah. So it itself was a wall deck.
its own wall, right? And there were a number of special energies. Obviously, the rapid and single strike decks relied on those energies, which were special energies, as well as other. Blissey was certainly a thing that existed and such at the time. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't terrible.
Well,
You're sighing over there when I say these things. But there were other special energy decks. So, and this was paired when it came out. Zacian V was around. So how do you get it set
Yeah,
up?
this deck was like the sketchiest deck ever. It was like, so for those of you who played Arceus Dragón, you know that deck doesn't set up super well. But imagine if you played the deck, but you didn't have like Arceus,
right,
which
Arceus
is the
didn't
energy
exist when it came
accelerator
out.
and like draw engine.
Right.
So pretty much you wouldn't have any energy acceleration or draw engine. I mean, you'd
Yes.
kind of have some weird things. You could Metal Saucer, but only to the basic. There's a different Dragón V.
Right, that's rotated now, but there was a metal Duraludon V.
Yeah, and then you could
That was the better V because it also reduced damage.
yeah,
That's a fact.
but then yeah, the deck was
It was high. It's very inconsistent. I remember playing it, and I remember just hitting all the right cards up against an opponent that had me dead with like my Zacian V's and Intrepid Sword. And I remember them complaining in Discord after because I hit like
Oh, you hit
I
triple
just hit the
metal.
nuts with it and if I didn't hit like 3 metals off my thing, I lost and it was done and it was
Yeah.
just but it was that kind of deck. It was once you set up 330 HP no weakness, you essentially weren't getting one shot very rarely.
Well,
right?
if you were, you'd lose.
Right, it was a lot of work to set
Even
it
if
up.
you got two-shotted, you might lose. The pretty much the main selling point, it was to counter a certain deck that may or may not be a bit too overpowered that we'll talk about later.
Yeah. Well, and it was the idea of making your opponent take extra prizes. Like now, it's mostly 2 prizes, so you make your opponent take 7. Here, you take your opponent, force them to take 8 prizes. You had a Zacian when it first came out, so they take a Zacian and a VMAX and a VMAX. If they have to take 8 prizes,
Which is the same thing that the Arceus deck wants as well. Although just
yes,
does it better.
that one's the 2 prizer also. So taking 8 prizes, But anyway, it's obviously it's still a good Pokemon. It's in the Dragon box deck.
Yeah, you have Regidrago. Although its attack is
It's okay.
yes, okay. It's
It's
like
the biggest attack in the deck, though,
it's
without
not the
discarding
biggest-
energy.
That is true. It has
So-
like some value. It's not always. I sometimes cut it. Like I guess it's good.
Right, you lose the ability, right? Because you copy it from the discard pile. You're not protected. But it was a good card.
Yeah. Speaking of good cards,
The other dragon.
yeah. So there's another dragon Pokemon from this set.
This got a lot of hype too.
This guy, the most hype, notably is a nostalgia Pokemon.
Yes.
It actually saw some play in Sylveon for its ability to discard your
Yep.
hand, draw 3, which
Right.
is okay. It's a VMAX. Its attack doesn't really matter. It's like, and it came out with Flaffy, which is like electric, and it was hyped like Rayquaza EX.
Yep.
But
Well, the potential 320 HP, no weakness, unlimited damage. How could it not be good?
yeah, exactly. But then it ended up not being good, which I think people probably should have seen coming, as the Reshiram and Zekrom tag team is pretty similar. It's Dragon type, I believe the same type, energy types, very similar attack. It just like flopped so badly. Like it flopped worse than Rayquaza, I think.
It did. I mean, it got a lot of hype. Oh, the other one?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it's got a lot of hype, and really, of the time that I've been playing, this is the biggest hype flop.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna
By a
pull
lot,
up
I think.
the format.
So what you looked at, let me just say, because the ability's okay. That's the problem. It's okay, but not great. You discard your hand, draw 3 cards. So, but you're not using your supporter, so that could be good for some decks. And then the max burst attack for fire, lightning, and it's a rapid strike, and rapid strike energy doesn't cover that, but that's its own issue. You discard any amount of basic fire or lightning, you can't combine the two, and it does 80 per energy discarded. So you needed to flood it with energy.
Yeah, so I'm pulling up the meta here. This is actually post rotation. We could look at pre-rotation as well, and whatever. But so you see, like the top decks, you got Umbreon, Leafeon, Suicune, Sylveon, Jolteon, Duraludon, and these are all decks that are new decks that just like drastically outperformed
Yeah.
Rayquaza by like so much. Like it wasn't even like the top five best VMAXs from like the set, which is so sad.
It just failed hard, basically. So, like, you could play it in Sylveon. That was really it. It gave you another type, and the draw ability
Was pretty
had some
decent.
yeah, had value on the deck.
And honestly, it came back a little. I think it like it flopped harder than it should have. Like it was hyped too much, and then
Hmm.
people are like, "This card just so trash." It's not actually that trash. It is kind of playable. It's kind of come back a little
Well, think of this: you
times.
get 4 Charizard EX, you flood it with energy,
Yeah.
and
No,
just
I've played Rayquaza Charizard DX. It's actually not that bad.
isn't it better just to attack with the Charizard EXs?
Probably, but it's not that like bad.
Yeah. All right.
Anyway, now we're moving on to the first set that introduced Fusion Strike Pokemon called Fusion Strike.
Yeah.
Guess what? The point of the set was it's for
Yeah,
Fusion Strike.
to me, a really bad set in that it had one really great thing and then a lot of not very good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, so let's go through some of the stuff. Oh, this set had a bunch of like random junk from like the rest of the year that got like pushed out because people were like,
Yeah.
you know what, we shouldn't include this for the other sets because we don't want to like bring people down with these bad cards. So now they're all in Fusion Strike.
Right, because if you don't know, the cards are released in Japan first. They kind of release a lot more smaller sets, and then they kind of select cards from usually 2 of the sets in general to make the international set, and they leave off some of the worst cards. So now it's all the worst cards needed to get dumped.
Yeah. So anyways, there were, let's see, which are the interesting ones? There is which is so
You go into the
bad.
Pokemon, you're skipping
Yeah.
over the energy and
Yeah,
stuff.
no. So there's Starmie. I'm talking about the non-Fusion Strike ones first. There was a Starmie, which in Lapras, which were moderately interesting. There was in Yveltal. There was a Morpeko as well. Yveltal was played in is still played in Single Strike Lugia, just the most boring Pokemon ever. 50 for 2, 110 for 3, and it sees play. It's just whatever. And then Melmetal, a decent partner for Zoroark. It's actually
An option.
outclassed now by essentially directly outclassed by
Was it?
Simisage,
Okay.
but which I believe hits grass weakness, which is actually a better weakness. Maybe, probably, and then it also same effect, and essentially it's the same attack cost. We had Cross Switcher was set in Cross Seaver. Cross Seaver not great. Seen a little bit of play, but Cross Switcher very decent.
Yeah, Cross
and
still sees a good amount of play.
and then we had, let's see, we had you want to talk about the two VMAXs from the Rapid and Single Strike?
Yeah. In turn, there were 2 non-Fusion Strike Pokemon that saw play. Gengar VMAX, which it was a counter to Mew, right?
Yeah,
That was
it
why
was a
it
counter
was
to Mew.
seen. So it was only there because of
Well, it
Mew.
wasn't just a counter to me. It was
Honestly, I found and like personally, this was back in the days of PTCGO, and these new cards are very expensive. Like a new VMAX was hard to get. So to get, I would have had to use a lot of resources, and it wasn't worth it. Because look, Gengar VMAX 320 HP is fine, single strike. It does 250 for 3, but 250 is not good enough.
but you have
You
the Single
boost
Strike
it.
energy.
Yeah, assuming you get all the pieces set up.
pretty
Single
decent.
strike's always been
okay.
inconsistent to me, is what I'll say.
I mean, you like VMAXs that hit 250. You like Ice Rider.
Yeah. So
And it's a interestingly named attack Fear and Panic, which seems a bit intense for Pokemon, I'll just say.
right.
But especially coming out of like COVID, it's like, you know what, this is
What we need. But it was the way to one shot for each opponent's V. So
yeah,
60
V and GX. It
for
does
each. So it would
60.
one shot like the Mew.
Yeah, one shot
That's
from Mew.
easily.
There are definitely
for
times it
2.
would hit about as much as the second attack, and it's only 2 energy, so it's a decent. This has seen play from various times. It's okay.
Yeah.
You could play as the Dark Patch.
Right. Yeah, no, it was a deck that saw some level of. It certainly saw play and some success. Always seemed a little bit befuddling to me that.
I mean, it's a decent. It's one of the 3 VMAXs, the 3 Single Strike VMAXs that were like the Single Strike deck. The other 2 being Umbreon and Urshifu, and you could really play them in any combination you wanted and
Right.
have something very reasonable.
Right. Yeah. But then the other VMAX, Inteleon VMAX, which is, and this one sees play today still too.
Yeah.
With Urshifu, I think it was always with Urshifu pretty much, although you could make it its own deck too.
Yeah, that was a bit of an inconsistent mess by itself. You'd have, I'll say the attack here, Gmax Spiral 70 for watercolors, but you can return the energy, which you should, to your hand. You do 140,
Yeah.
which is not great. But then you have an
No.
ability, you can discard a water energy from your hand to ping 2 of your opponent's bench like on 20.
Yeah.
So that's okay. I mean, it's pretty decent. It's extra damage, which is always nice.
Right.
You compare this with Urshifu to get that extra damage to do some interesting things.
Mm-hmm.
You could also loop Inteleon with Cheryl, Inteleon VMAX with Cheryl.
Right. That was a big, that was kind of necessary because you're only doing 140 per turn, and you're going to ping some, but eventually you're going to run out of energies or they're going to path you. So,
Yeah. Well, you don't run with the basic.
the basic energies discarding.
Yeah.
So so you needed to Cheryl a few turns. I always felt, although the way it was played varied, but like now it's Inteleon and Urshifu, and you play the Radiant Alakazam to move the damage counters around.
Yeah, I will say, and Medicham V as well. That's
Yeah.
pretty nice.
Yep.
But I will say, some people essentially tried to, because there's Urshifu Iron Valiant, which essentially Iron Valiant replaced the Inteleon in Urshifu. That's so bad. It's really bad. So Inteleon VMAX is 100% better than Iron Valiant paired with Urshifu.
Or do you need this with Iron Valiant?
Yeah, I don't.
You know what I'm saying?
That's
See,
the
now
play.
you got more ways to get damage on.
I know.
Set up that Medicham easier.
But yeah, I was like looking at a tournament, and I don't remember, but it was like, I mean, long story short, don't play Iron Valiant Urshifu. You should instead definitely be playing Italian Urshifu. That's better, and that's a
Yeah.
decent deck still.
Yeah. As we're looking at here, I just got to, there's the Electrode.
The notoriously bad kind of.
Yeah, I just got to mention. So it's a stage 1, 90 HP. For 1 energy, 1 colorless, it does 120. So okay, but that's not. It was plays a counter to Lugia, but it didn't actually one-shot Lugia unless you had something to help it. But then it would do 90 damage to itself, and it's a 90 HP Pokemon, so it knocked itself out, and it would come up short on Lugia.
Yeah,
but
so you'd
there
actually
you
be
go.
like losing the prize trade. Lugia was a bit difficult to counter.
Amusing. But people tried this.
I played it.
You
I played it. I played it with the Obama Pokemon, with Obama Snow, with Single Strike Energy, and I played it with Mustard.
Mm-hmm.
And it sometimes won, rarely. I think I teched it in something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
These things were great. And then I'm looking next to it too. We have Minun and Plusle.
Yeah.
Which is one I still kind of want to do, but I still know.
I mean, they're not great.
It's just funny though. Call for family with Minun for 1 energy. You put 2 on the bench, fine. And then you after Plusle, another basic for for 1 energy. If you used Minun last turn to attack, it does 120.
Yeah.
So 2 turns to do 120 damage. So
yeah.
Anyway.
But okay, let's talk about the cat in the room, Mew VMAX. Actually, we don't. Well, we'll talk about the whole Fusion Strike. Where should we start?
So, you want to talk with Mew itself, or you want to talk with the?
Let's do.
What do you want?
I'll start with Genesect. Genesect to be arguably the best Pokemon ever, in my opinion. Fusion Strike system. Once during your turn, you may draw cards until you have as many cards in hand as you have Fusion Strike Pokemon in play. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a weird way to say it. I mean, it's the most concise way to say it, but it's a little confusing. Pretty much, you want to get a bunch of Fusion Strike Pokemon in play. You can draw through your entire deck turn 1.
Right. I mean, you shouldn't be able to, and you can use as many Genesects as you have in play. That's one of the problems, right? If you get 4 in play, you're drawing you draw through like half your deck in 1 turn.
Yeah, I have drawn through my entire deck in 1 turn. It's like a bit, not like to. It's
not to actually win a game.
Yeah, and I got 8 cards in the Lost Zone, turn 1 with Mew VMAX. I think going first, but and then it has an attack for Metal Colorless. Does 210 Metal Colorless. You essentially ignore that, but 210, and you can't attack next turn, but it's still a very decent damage output.
But you're right. There's not many decks that would actually attack with Genesect.
Yeah, but if you had to, it's not like that bad.
Well, except to get the energies on, it wasn't easy, right? The Fusion Strike energy counts as any type of energy, but you need 2 of those.
Lisas, but you can also Metal Saucer. You have Metal Saucer. So it was doable.
And you could play it in expanded as a Genesect deck too.
Yeah.
Again,
there are better things. Yeah. Anyway, so
that's the Genesect V is probably the most important card in the Mew deck.
Yeah. And then of course you have Mew VMAX with how do I lost it?
Yeah.
So its max miracle attack is pretty mediocre, hitting through effects of attacks for 2 energy. Same thing with Mew V's attack.
Right.
Like,
But again, hitting through effects is important.
Yeah.
Because there are counters, and you just like counter decks. You work through it slowly, and you get there.
yeah, and then Psychic Leap on the Mew V does 70, and you can go back into the deck, essentially healing you off, which is decent.
No, it's important. I think it's probably more significant than it gets attention
Yeah.
for. And they have to make sure that you don't evolve all your Mews into VMAXs. And then I've done that and then wanted to heal up, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
I can't do that now.
You want to say the big attack on Mew, though?
Sure. So Max Miracle.
No.
I'm sorry. Cross Strike Fusion for
No,
two.
Cross Fusion Strike. You said it wrong twice.
Wow, consistently wrong. Yeah, so you shouldn't ask me to do it. So 2 colorless, and you choose one of your benched Fusion Strike Pokemon's attacks, and use it as this attack. I don't know why it doesn't need to say bench there, does it? It wouldn't really matter. I guess it can't attack its own attack.
Well, that actually does matter. You can't copy Max Miracle,
But you could.
which you can't actually.
Which you're right. If you have a DTE attached, you couldn't actually do. You can't. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. So, and obviously we had the Genesect, which does 210. A lot of times you attach a DTE, so you're 190.
Which KOs Genesect.
And it KOs Mew V.
Yeah. But then you have you also have Meloetta here, which does its attack is Melodious Echo. It does 70 for each Fusion Strike energy attached to all your Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're copying this, you don't, or even if you're not copying it, you can hit up to 280.
Right.
Fusion Strike energy has an effect, but it doesn't really matter. It's mostly any type of energy. You can accelerate with Elisa Sparkle. So choose up to 2 your Fusion Strike Pokemon, and then search your deck for a Fusion Strike energy and attach it to each of them. So turn 1, you can hit 210 with Meloetta.
Right, which made it, I'm not probably the biggest threat to attack turn 1, to take multi-prize. I could knock out a multi-prize Pokemon turn 1.
Yeah.
And then we have the Power Tablet, which I assume you're getting too.
Yeah, Power Tablet. I mean, yeah.
Which you needed to knock out most the multi-prizers.
Yeah, it's same thing as Electro Power, kind of like Plus Power. When you play it, you do 30 more.
Yeah.
If your opponent's active. It's an item, so you can check down 4 of them, theoretically, and KO stuff.
Right, and Mew decks, besides items are always good to play. It loves to get rid of items or cards you can infinitely get rid of from hand, to just draw more cards to Genesect. And there's those Mew players that just discard every card possible from the hand and then run out of resources.
It's so fun.
But obviously,
Mew, really fun.
Power Tablet. I play Mew some. It's very good. Power Tablet's super good. And then you have Fusion Strike Energy. Just that's the basic energy, what's that?
I mean, it's a special energy.
Special energy, right? Sorry, yeah. But Elisa Sparkles accelerates it, or you attach per hand, and then it does make your Pokemon immune to
Effects and abilities.
Right, so it can't get pinged.
Yeah, and most notably right now, I mean, the ping was a big deal.
Right,
but now you can't get stopped by Spiritomb. Well,
your ability on the Genesect doesn't get shut down by a card that would.
It's like Spiritomb or
the
Buff Key.
The the fighting one, right? That shuts down
Ting-Lu, yeah.
Ting-Lu would shut it down if it was damaged, but even if it was damaged, which this stops the pinging, it would still not be shut down. So
yeah, if you have the energy on, it's not really where you want the energy on, but it's like you definitely can have just extra energy attached.
And obviously your copy Melo's attack, the energy just needs to be in play, right? You can attach a DTE to the Mew, and you can attach the Fusion Strikes to the Genesect, and it's fine.
Yeah. But then you also had from this set, you had, let's see, there's some Latios and Latias. Latias was originally a consideration from VMAX to stop VMAX's damage, which is okay. Ended up not really being useful because you weren't that worried about them, but it was a card. And then now it actually is coming.
Is it seeing some play?
Yeah, wait, which one is? I don't remember. There's I think it's a Latios that has a good attack. They accelerate to each other, so Latios can accelerate to the new Latios.
Okay.
I might be getting the wrong one, but it doesn't matter. They both do like the same thing. And you accelerate to it. It is 180 for 3. It's back, I guess.
Yeah.
And then there is Deoxys, which is, I guess, the quintessential battle styles Pokemon.
The ultimate, yes.
Yeah, it has its attack is 160 if you have Fusion Strike attached, but then it's Fusion Strike, Single Strike, and Rapid Strike, which allows you to do some weird things.
Right. You can attach any of the energies.
You could do so many weird things. None of them
use
are
all the
really good. Yeah, the
scrolls.
scrolls. Pretty much all that's like not good.
Correct.
But you can like one shot anything, I guess.
Right. If it has any fusion
Um,
strike energy attached, it does 80 more. It just opens up the potential possibilities. We both, I'm sure, tried to think of ways and
yeah, I think we both
really,
played it.
yeah, and it wasn't good.
There was a Huntail that increases attack cost of single strike Pokemon.
Yep.
And then we need to talk about it. We got to talk about cancel culture with Rapid Strike Canceller. Yeah, there's a Gorvis with an ability, Rapid Strike Canceller, that says your opponent's Rapid Strike Pokemon in play have no abilities, which is actually very important for control against. Well, it's pretty important for control against Intelligent Engine decks.
So you don't get
also,
pinged.
Yeah, there's also Jolteon and Memory Capsule, but yeah, you have the Scorbus.
Right.
And then there's the Excelgor that people played in Mew to counter Charizard.
Oh yeah, saw some play.
Pretty bad. And then there's one other. I think is there only one other Battle Styles card that came out later? Maybe, and that is Ice Cube, which is there are a few, but Ice Cube is kind of like Meloetta, but it's like bench snipe, lower damage output. It's good, I guess.
It saw some play, right?
Yeah, I think it's still seeing. Like, let me.
It does 40 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon for each Fusion Strike energy attached to all your Pokemon. So it gave Mew, bench attacking possibilities, which obviously is nice.
Yeah, and I think most lists run it now. It's decent, but overall, I feel like the battle styles are cool, except for Fusion Strike, which wasn't cool. Right? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean Fusion Strike. The problem is, and it came out all in one set, which makes it less interesting. Essentially, all in one set, right?
Yeah.
So whereas the battle styles started small and they were viable at first, but then got better and got more options that went along, which I think made it more interesting to me than Fusion Strike. Plus, Fusion Strike was a set package. It's Mew, Genesect, Meloetta, Elesa Sparkle, Fusion Strike Energy. Like the deck almost, most of the 60 card
Battle
deck,
VIP Pass and Chromatic were also in that set.
Yeah, so most essentially the deck. They told you what most of the 60 cards should be, which from Pokemon, just what they printed, and that's less interesting.
Yeah. Also, there was I think a lack of ball search for a little while. Maybe it wasn't that bad, but a number of ball search cards rotated, except not from you, because you got Feather Ball and you had like Fog Crystal, which are both okay. They're not that good, but they're okay. Right. You could play those in Mew. So.
Yeah, and Mew was just too good when it came out. I think they gave it too many resources, I gotta say.
Yeah, Mew has been top 10 probably since it came out. Arguably, it's not top 10 now, right. But like if you combine archetypes.
I think it's in an okay place now. I think when it first came out, it was too good. Then, and when it was Lugia the following?
No, Lugia,
that was much later.
But yeah, there was some like dominant stuff. It was like very good. It was a top deck. If I'm looking here, it was 18% play rate, but over like 52.5% win rate, which is insane.
Right. When it's played by that many people, it should drop.
It's a new deck. So just crazy. Like if you look at, maybe Arceus was also good. Arceus was okay, but it wasn't like.
Mew was just as good. They were both. Mew was still more played by more people than Arceus when it came out.
Yeah, and then you look at some of the decks, and like Duraludon was really highly played, even though we just talked about that being like super sketchy and kind of bad. Dark Inteleon and Gengar, two kind of weird decks.
Right, to counter.
Dark Inteleon, one of my favorites, because you could play so much weird stuff. You could play Weezing, Moltres, Glen Moltres, Hoopa, and Sableye. You'd have these like weird packages. And then you saw. I feel like there's got to be some other, like, Hoopa Moltres. Hoopa Moltres was, like, kind of sketchy. Its win rate isn't great here. People play, like, Leafeon Moltres, Suicune Moltres, all these, like, weird things with just random back Pokemon. Oh, and Obstagoon.
Oh, yeah, right. Right, as a counter.
A counter, which wasn't a counter because its ability, like, it didn't work against Fusion Strike Energy.
Right, the ping. Its ability. Yeah.
So that was a bit unfortunate. But you got some fun stuff here. What is Surfetched? Oh, Surfetched Moltres. It crashed.
Okay.
Well, I guess we're not looking at that today. This was like you had some funny stuff. But this was the Turbo Ducking deck.
Okay. Yeah. That a little bit. It's been a while.
Yeah. Anyway, so Mew is not gone, but it will be gone soon, which I'm happy for. Not so happy about the other things rotating.
Right. Like Battle Styles has been, all in all, I think Battle Styles is for me is a thumbs up. It add a lot of options within each of within Rapid and Single Strike there are a lot of options. Within Fusion Strike there's only one option, which makes that less interesting. And Mew also, because it's a deck that copies other attackers. The problem is it mostly copies one attack also.
Well, there are a few attacks, but they're all kind of like
there's
the same.
two, right? There's Meloetta and Genesect V mostly.
But they do
a lot of
same amount
games it's just and obviously DTE Mew just does one. It just copies Genesect
Yeah,
V
you do
every turn.
Yeah, you do have the two Mew attacks as well that you can copy, which are okay.
Yeah.
But they're not really like interesting.
Right.
The send it back into the deck one's kind of interesting. The hitting through effects is not. That's actually less interesting than not hitting through effects.
So, but battles, and the collection of Pokemon trainers, energy, I think it's nice. It gives options, and which I think is good for the game.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to Paradox. We will see A-Spec cards as well, presumably with them.
Yeah. I
cool.
think we had been talking at one point. We were kind of surprised they didn't come out already because they had announced the A-Specs. That was at Worlds, right?
Yeah, they announced them with the Paradox Pokemon, which kind of implied that they're going to be there together.
Yeah.
We haven't even heard anything about them.
Right.
I imagine it'll be coming in. I don't know when the next set comes. It's like March.
We have
or
a special set in January.
Yeah, so it won't.
And
be
then like 2 months later, the first full set.
Yeah, so I imagine we'll see A-Specs there, and we'll be seeing some awesome new stuff. We got this we got the lanky Duraludon, and we got the weird tall Raikou. So we'll see that. And then, yeah, I don't know. We'll see some cool stuff. I'm a bit nervous about because they have the new mechanic in Terra and the new mechanic in Paradox.
Mm-hmm.
And if they'll develop both of them, like
what happens?
Yeah, I hope they develop both of them. But overall, I think Metal Styles were cool. Nothing too original. But they were cool, and I'm looking forward to seeing what Pokemon's going to do in the future with new mechanics.
Yeah, I mean, if they started off well, and if they keep things up, more things like Battle Styles, I think we'll both be happy.
Yeah, we hope you are also happy with the podcast. If you are, consider subscribing to 10 Types and Uncommon Fossil on YouTube, and liking, commenting your thoughts.
Yeah,
and we're excited to see you in the next podcast.
Yep. Take care.